everybody, and welcome to the FBL Solidity team call. My name is Marisa Maggio. Today is Thursday, June 15th of 2023. We're going into week 4 of 5 of June. Super excited. We have a very special guest on the call with us today. Hall of Fame producer, top producer, just been out there crushing it here at Family First Life. We have Mr. Gary Ahlberg on with us today. Gary, how are you doing?
Good. I'm doing good.
Awesome,
Hanging in
awesome.
there, dialing.
Dialing. It is a Thursday, so that's how you know he
Yeah.
works. He's dialing. Love it. So just to kind of jump into the call, Gary, if you don't mind, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you were doing before Family First Life, and kind of what got you into Family First Life.
Okay. So I started off working with Eric Anthony at the motorcycle dealership back in 2013. So I worked with him for probably 5, 6 years. Actually, it was 2012, but I did that for probably 10 years, right? From 2000, or actually 8 years working at that dealership. So I all started off at a motorcycle dealership, from the bottom up from over there. So started at a service tech, was doing the late night deliveries, kind of doing like the cleanup stuff like that. So kind of worked my way up doing that. I went from service, worked as parts, became sales manager, all within probably an 8 year, 9 year term, So did that for about 8, 9 years, was, working at the motorcycle dealership, grinding 6 days a week, probably 8 to 10 hours a day minimum. So, yeah, started doing that. And then Eric Anthony, I went down to Florida, met Eric Anthony in 2000, or saw Eric Anthony in 2021 in January. And I saw, what he was doing, was like, man, how the heck did you get all this? And how did this all turn about, And he's like, oh, well, I'm doing this insurance. So I was like, oh, that's all. I was like, you know what? I got to get out of where I'm at. I'm not happy. I worked at the dealership. I got fired for going to one of my best friend's dad's funeral for a little bit, which kind of sucked, right? And then I went back to the job like an idiot. And then ended up, yeah, started doing that. I got my license, took the course, took me probably about 3 weeks to a month to actually get everything all done. Got through the course and then just put my 2 weeks in and started doing it right around March. Yeah, March 1st. So
Love it. And that was March 1st of 21.
21. Yeah. So it's been 2 years, 2 years, 26 months.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you. Awesome. So you had quite the kind of you have the cool backstory, if you will, right? In
Mm-hmm.
terms of you went from, moving yourself up throughout that dealership, which is great. From, like you said,
Yep.
you came in as a tech and just shows your work ethic there, right?
Yeah.
But also the 8 to 10 hours a day. And then when you kind of wrapped up with, and you got in trouble or fired and went back because you
Yeah.
couldn't attend your, dad's best friend's funeral. That like hit me. And I'm like, what? Right? Because,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
being self-employed, thankfully enough, we don't have to worry about those things. But even being employed, hearing that, it's almost like, what? That's crazy. But I'm happy
Yeah.
that you found your way here. So
Yeah.
awesome. And Eric Anthony's great. But with that, kind of getting started. So you mentioned, you got your pre-licensing course, you got into the course, and you gave your 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What made you feel like I can give my 2 weeks?
I was just like, I'm gonna make it work. And I think a lot of times too, people always say like it's the negative people that don't believe in you, right? That push you even more. So it's kind of like they were always like, oh, 6 months, don't worry, we'll save you a spot when you come back. I'm like, I'm not coming back. There's no way I'm coming back. I said, I don't care what it takes. Didn't even help with one family yet. I ran like in the field for a couple of days and I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing, So, and I was nervous, but I think a lot of it was too that I just wanted to get out of the situation what I was doing. I knew I was going to like this. I love people. And I think that just kind of pushed me out there. I was just going to figure it out. Once I was backed up against the wall, I was like, it's going to be a rough couple months, which it was, trying to figure it out. But I think once you just have your back against the wall, you can kind of push through it, right? There's no no
Absolutely.
no plan B.
Love it. And, I think that that's how, like, and don't get me wrong, everybody comes in a little bit different. But when you
Mm-hmm.
come in to win, that's how you
Mm-hmm.
come in, right? Like when people aren't believing in you. right? And
Mm-hmm.
I love that you said that because it works against essentially the status quo, if you will, right?
Yeah.
It
Yep.
can be really easy to be like, oh, well, my grandmother said, and like, guys, I love my grandmother, I love everybody's grandma. But at the same time, it might not just be the person you're looking to hear from. I know, Gary, when I left, when I was a server and a bartender, so prior to the industry, when I left, my boss said the same thing to me. He said, I'll see you in 2 weeks when he asked me what I was doing. And that right there, I was like, I'm never going to see this dude again. Like, no way,
Yeah.
right? So it's like
Yeah.
same thing with you. You had that mentality of if all of these people can do it, I can definitely do it. So I'm giving my 2 weeks now and I will never see them again. And you have it.
Yeah.
So
No.
love it.
No.
And
So yeah,
Gary,
that go
that's how
ahead.
you kind of
Sorry.
came in. No, it's okay. You're good. And then you also talked about you came in, you kind of, it was a little messy, right? And I think that this part is important to talk about because it's like
Mm-hmm.
we look at Gary in his first full year last year, right? You hit Hall of Fame. And how many families
Mm-hmm.
did you help, Gary?
It was 420, 420
420,
families.
420 families in your first full year, which is absolutely amazing. So
Mm-hmm.
bring yourself back to essentially in 21, you're in March or so and you're getting up and moving. What were some of the things that you bumped into in the beginning that maybe you made like a really big deal, but they really in reality were not a big deal?
I think a lot of it, everybody like has the problem. I think a lot of it with dialing, obviously calling people, which was a struggle, right? I'm the work was not the hard part. Like going to work every day was not hard. 6 days a week, I did it for 8 years. I'm like, I can bust this out. This is no problem. Going to work, showing up, getting up early. That was the kind of easy part for me. But I think it was more or less of going to the house, kind of not knowing what the heck I'm talking about at the beginning, right? And then once probably about a month to 2 months in, it just all of a sudden clicked, right? And it is like that product knowledge isn't that important at the beginning. And obviously, once you start figuring it out and you're there just to help people, and the people love the transparency, they love just seeing that you actually care, that you're there to help them, is probably night and day the big difference. How many people I sat with a couple of families the other day, and they're just like, just the way you were talking on the phone, how soothing and how genuine you are. That's the only reason I let you over. So it's like when you go in there and you can just go make a difference with these people. That was the hardest part for me. I kind of wanted to know everything. I think of the
Mhm.
products and everything else instead of just going in there and doing it. Right. My first home I went to that helped them with a policy. I had to go back there 2 3 times to get stuff re-signed. I had no like it was, but the guy's like, no, at least I know you care. You know what I mean? So I think when people see that, they just see the genuine in you and that you actually care for people. So
Absolutely. And I think that that's huge. And you really kind of hit it right on the head. Like, in other words, it sounds like what you're saying is like when you came in, you had a work ethic. Getting up was not difficult. Making it happen, you knew you were going to, it was just a matter of
mm-hmm.
time. But you were kind of intimidated with product knowledge and kind of those little ins and outs that we don't really fully understand in the beginning.
Yeah.
But when you were going through those moments, Gary, did you have times that you reached out to somebody in the home and that's kind of how you found your way? Or what did that really look like for you?
At the first, I was like, I'm not going to call anybody in the home because I'm scared, right? Being honest, transparent. I was like, oh
Yes.
man, I don't need to call anybody. But I'm like, okay, if I just call like Eric Schmidt or James Pizzalia or Eric Anthony, call someone in the home, they're going to guide me and maybe help the family and maybe say something that's going to make the big difference. I think that's huge. And once you sit with, 100, they say about 100 families, you start to actually start figuring it out on your own. So I think at the beginning, I was kind of stubborn and not wanting to call somebody when I definitely should have. Right. And I think, yeah, that was probably a big part of it. Just thinking I knew everything on my own. Oh, well, I'll figure it out. I'm going to do this, but
Right. So
kind of
really
help my
kind of
learning curve.
absolutely. And I think that that's huge that you openly were like, hey, I was like, I didn't want to call from the home. Like I knew I could, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily want to all the time. Right. And that's
Yeah.
important because, guys, if you're a new agent on the call, like Gary just said it, like, hey, if I call from the home, like I might have helped some more people in the beginning. Right. But
Mm-hmm.
also, once you got through those first, 100 appointments, like you said, you had a lot better gauge of, okay, this person has diabetes before the age of, 50. So we're going to be looking at, John Hancock, for example, right? Like you
Hmm.
start to pick up to different cues, if you will. So I love that. And I think it's really important. But also what you said was when I talk to people, you almost had to take off the sales hat. You had to realize like there wasn't necessarily a sales hat that you had to put on, right? I
Yeah.
know for me, Gary, like when I came in, I was like, I have to go in there and like sell them on why they need like, and then like it didn't work. Like, by the way, guys, when I
Yeah.
came into this industry, I was not a family first life, but Gary, I didn't help one family the first month that I was in the industry.
Oh, really?
So it says a lot about me though, because I was so nervous about what I was going to say, just like what you're saying, right? Like you were nervous
Yeah.
about like what you were going to say versus going in there and just being like, how can I help these people? And
Yeah.
when that mindset can shift to how can I help them versus, oh my God, it's all about me and what do I say? What do I do? What if I don't know? It it shifts for the client too. And I
Yeah.
love that you brought up, like, you sat in a couple of homes over the past couple of days and they said to you, like, hey, the only reason I really wanted to deal with you or talk to you is because you were sounded really genuine. And
Hmm.
when people start saying things like that to you guys, that's when you know, like, you're doing your job, right?
Hmm.
Like, that's huge because at the end of the day, if the client doesn't feel comfortable with you, like, they're not going to talk to you face to face over the phone. It doesn't matter. If they don't like you, they don't like you. But when you can just come from a genuine place of, hey, if I can help your family or put you in a better position, I will. If not, I'll let you know, right? And that's
Hmm.
genuine. So I love that. And then you talked a little bit about kind of the aspect of dialing. Now, I think, of course, we all know it's a big piece of the business, right? No matter what avenue you're looking down, if you will. But you
Yeah.
are predominantly still in home, Gary. Is that right?
Yeah. Mostly, I'm kind of doing a little more like tell us over the phone stuff, telesales. Probably like it's probably 80% in home, 20% telesales.
All right. So you're kind of like catering, so to say, to certain people that don't really want in home.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I'm with you for sure. So talk to us a little bit about your lead flow. Talk to us a little bit, if you don't mind, about what it looked like in the beginning in terms of type of lead and cost, and kind of what it looks like now in terms of lead type and cost.
Hmm. So at the beginning, I was probably doing 500 to about 750 a week. And then it was obviously because I was like, it was hard at the beginning to be like, oh man, I got to drop $1,000 or $500 or whatever. It's like, holy crap. And once you start figuring it out, it's like going to a pizza shop, right? You got a pizza shop, you're starting up a business, you buy enough dough for 3 pizzas, right? All you're gonna sell is 3 pizzas. But if you buy enough dough to make 100 pizzas, right? You have the possibility of selling 100 pizzas, right? So I think it's the same thing kind of with leads. Now it's like now I'm upwards of like 1,500 to 2,000 a week. I don't have a lead problem. I got enough leads to come in, and it's just it's awesome. It's awesome to be overwhelmed with it because I can take those leads and I'm like, I got so many people I got to get back to. I'm not stressing about trying to make something happen out of a small amount, right? So now that I get that many leads coming in, right? It's soothes my brain, right? Because I'm like, holy crap, okay. I don't have, 8 leads to call and try to make something happen with that. It's just like, okay, I got 100 people to call, usually every dial day, that I'm going through. If I'm not booking them on the appointment and they don't answer me, I'm going to door knock them, right? So that's the activity that I keep in the field. If I get no showed or if I have a little time slot, I'm just trying to keep it busy as far as the leads, trying to resolve them, get in front of them because there's a lot of people that just won't answer the phone for anybody. So, but yeah, my lead spend probably went from probably 500 to 750 this first, 6 months, 5 months. And then I was like, once I ramped it up and started doing 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, that's where it just started making the big difference because it was just you're constantly busy. Your mind doesn't have time to think about negative stuff or why you didn't sell it, or why you couldn't get a hold of them. So
Absolutely. And I think you just hit on so many different important things from guys, the lead flow you come in with is not the lead flow you're going to stay with, right? Like,
mm-hmm.
is it fair to say, Gary, when you came in, you were buying predominantly leads all out of the ILC, you didn't have anything like reoccurring?
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep.
And now do you have some stuff that's just automatically coming in? You don't even have to think
Yep.
about it.
Automatically stuff. They bill you every night. I still use a lot of leads on ILC. I use a lot of honestly old 1 month, 2 month, 3 months, which I've been doing really well with them. And just doing those because they're cheap. You can get a bunch of them and just get a bunch of people to talk to. So, uh,
Absolutely. And like you said, when you have so many people to talk to, you don't have time to think about, oh, well, John was rude to me and Tina told me to call her back later and hung up on, like, you just are like
yeah.
next, right? And
Mm-hmm.
talk to us a little bit about, like, I know when my lead flow changed in this business, so did my production by default. It should,
Oh
by
yeah.
the way, if your lead flow changes, right? Like,
Yeah.
if it doesn't, like, let's call for help. But talk to us a little bit about how many families you were helping when you were spending, that 500 to 750 a week. And then when you ramped it up to now that 15 to 2K a week, what does that look like from then to now?
So if I was spending about 500 to 750 a week, it would probably be give or take right in the 15 families, 15 to 20 families a month. And then once literally probably doubled it. And when I started doing 1,500 about, give or take, a little bit less some weeks and almost 2,000 some weeks, it's about 40 to 50 families a month.
Awesome. And people ask all the time, like, what's the cheat code of going from
Mm-hmm.
helping that 15, 20 families a month to helping, 30, 40, 50, 60? And it's
Mm-hmm.
leads, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
a bigger lead investment. And that's exactly, it's just funny because it's like I look at even the folks on this call, the ones who have changed their lead flow, like they're seeing success. The ones that
Mm-hmm.
haven't necessarily changed it, we're seeing a little bit of a struggle there. So, guys, it's
Mm-hmm.
important to know that as you evolve in the business, so does your lead flow.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, but from kind of hearing your story the other day and prior to that too, by the way,
Yeah.
you're married, you have children, so it's not just like Gary's looking out for Gary, right? Gary's looking out for the
Yeah.
family, right? With
Exactly.
that being said, talk to us a little bit about, what that communication level looks like so that, your wife, your children, they know that, dad's at work and, kind of how the family, felt about that.
So at the beginning, when I first got into this business, I said, hey, you're probably not going to see me a lot. And this is honesty. Like my wife, she's an RN now. She was going to school being RN. She was the same thing. She was a bartender server. And I said, this first 2 months may be a little rocky at the beginning. I said, it could be completely fine. I don't know. But I was like, this first 2 months, I'm going to be putting everything I can into this because I have to figure it out. Right. There was nothing that was going to stop me from figuring it out every day. Some days, some 7 days a week, I was just like, I'm going to figure this out. Right. And I think, and she got it. She knew I worked a lot too from the motorcycle dealership. So I wasn't home much. I would leave at 9 a.m. and wouldn't get home till 8 o'clock at night. So I kind of told her, I was like, hey, if I start slipping up, let me know. Right. If you think I'm starting to like, I'm be getting lazier, let me know. Cause I'm going to be like, I need you to stay on me. This business is hard enough, right? Trying to be an independent and self driven, but she was good. I was like, I just might need your help a little bit for this first couple of months, but once they get it figured out, it's going to take off. We're going to be good. So, but yeah, I mean, right now we just flow. She works nursing. She's nursing now at a hospital right Bacchus. So she loves it. We've always been just kind of self-driven, like people for the most part. But I think definitely we always kind of clicked on always trying to just strive and get more and everything else. So I got a newborn in November. And then I mean this business is crazy. There's nothing like it. Even, making six figures at the motorcycle dealership and coming to this, I'm building a house now. No, it's it's crazy how much it can. You know what I mean? So
I love to hear it. And that's awesome. And I love how you said, when you had that conversation with your wife, the biggest thing that you told her, or the two biggest things were, hey, I'm really not going to necessarily be around the next 2, 3 months. I
mm-hmm,
really got to figure this out. But
mm-hmm,
also that she was all for it, which is great. But that you
mm-hmm,
told her, hey, if I'm slipping up, like hold me accountable. Like tell me, like
exactly.
get up and get out of bed and go to work. Right.
Yeah.
And I love that dynamic. I think that that's beautiful because when you're both striving to be better, like you said, you're building a house, right? Like you've
Yeah.
barely been in the industry 2 years. Like that's awesome. You know, you have a
Yeah.
newborn, you have all these exciting things happening around you. And, you know,
Mm-hmm.
one thing that's always great to feel is like money's not a problem, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no stress like financial stress. So you're
No.
not seeing that, which is great. And, you know, I love how, you know, it seems like you and your wife are really leveling up together. I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
But
Thank
if you
you.
don't mind, and if you don't mind kind of hitting on, you talked a little bit about door knocking in the field. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, like up until about 2 weeks ago, I was all in home. Like I'm like in home, like I'm only coming to your house. Like I don't even want to
Yeah.
talk to you on the phone, right? So
Yeah.
I think it's really important to stay active out there, right? Because
Oh yeah.
sometimes people say, like with telesales, you have a one up because, like, essentially you're not leaving the house. You can be on the phone all day if you're disciplined, right? And you can do activity all day versus drive time. Now, that can also be reversed, right? Like it can go the other
Mm-hmm.
way. It depends on who's, you know, whose hands are the leads in. So talk to us a little bit about on those days, Gary, that maybe you just didn't book a full schedule, like it just didn't happen for whatever reason, or you're getting no shows. Like, what are you putting in place to make sure that you're still setting your week up to be successful?
Mm-hmm. So typically I'll book appointments, and obviously I'm trying to get the 8 to 10 a day, right? Because if I'm busy and I'm late to appointments, it's honestly better. And people know you're busy, right? So you show up and, you know, I usually give them about a half-hour window, say like between 1:30. Just say, hey, just give me a small window. I am helping a family right before you. And just give me a small window just in case you got a couple extra questions. Well, if they no show me and they're not there, usually I'm in that area and I have my leads organized kind of it's by the county, and then I have it by towns and how quick, how kind of organized how the towns would go if I was coming home, right? So like I'm in Connecticut. So for example, if I was going like Norwich, I would go to the farthest town and I would kind of work my way back or towards my next appointment, right? Because I print all my leads, I keep them all printed out, and I have them organized by counties, and then I have them organized section by town. So typically, if I'm in that area and I'm in Groton, Connecticut, and I went to an appointment, the lady's not there, I'll pull up one of my leads. Even if they told me F you on the phone, I'm still showing up. You know what I mean? So a lot of times too, either they just got a bad impression where they thought I was a telemarketer, or they thought something, they hung up and said, stop calling me, you know, I'll still show up to their house. But yeah, that's typically what it is. I take the lead, you know, for an example of a door knock, I'll take a lead, no matter what it is. I say, hey, the office sent me out here. I'm just a local supervisor here in Groton to get this information out to you, kind of just go over your eligibility. You got a couple minutes to go over it real quick. Usually they're like, yeah, no problem. Or what's this for? It's like, oh, it's that request you had sent into our office. They couldn't get in touch with you. So they sent me out here to kind of the gopher to kind of get this out to you. And
Love
then
it.
you make it simple. I don't tell them it's going to take a half an hour, you know, usually when that's what it does anyways. But I always say, yeah, it only takes a couple minutes because people want simplicity. They want it easy. They don't want to be like bothered with an hour speech or you setting up a presentation. That's what they think, you know? So if you make it super simple and like just kind of explain it to them as it's going to be quick and easy, they're more likely to do it, I guess you'd say.
Absolutely. And I think that door knocking is huge. Like if you're in the field and you're not door knocking, like what are you doing? Right. Because like you said, Gary, you can't, like some people, they just will not answer the phone. Like no matter how many times you call, whose number you call off of, what text message you send, like it doesn't matter. They're not answering. They don't know who it is. They're all set. And I love how you made the door knock so simple, right? Like sometimes, you know, like you'll have an agent and guys, it's normal to like overthink your first door knock, but like after that, it's just like normal. Like Gary said, like the office just sent me out here to get the information and check if like, you know, check what you're eligible for. You got a few minutes? Like if somebody came to my office store right now, Gary, and said that, I would be like, yeah, you can come on in, right? Like,
Yeah.
like, you know, I'd be like, I filled it out, right? So
Yeah.
I love that. And if you had to just like say an approximate number, like every single week you're in the field, you'd probably do at least X door knocks. What would you say it is?
I'm probably doing, there's some days where I'm like, I just can't get a hold of these people. And I'm just like, I'm going to go door knock for a full day straight. And a lot of times it works out well because it's like you'll be able to help, 3-4 families on a full door knock day without no appointments. It's just work. It's just activity. So I think I would say I probably door knock at least 20, 30 times. So 20 to 40 times a week.
That's fair. Love it. And that definitely pops your production up quite a bit, I can imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And I love how you said the door knock day. And the reason I say that is because, guys, there's going to be days that you hit the phones and it's just not your best dial day, or something happens on Monday and Thursday or Thursday, and whatever happened, you weren't able to dial. So here you are on Tuesday, Wednesday. And it's like you have a choice at that point. You could be like, oh, I'm just going to wait till Thursday, right? Like Gary is not waiting till Thursday. Gary's like, I have leads. I'm going to go door knock them. I'm just going to make essentially a door knock schedule, right? You put them in Road Warrior and you're just on your way, right? So I love how you said that, like you're heading away from the house and you're heading kind of back into the house. Like that makes perfect sense to me. And through those days, Gary, typically if you're active, are you usually helping like, at least 2 families?
Oh yeah. Usually I've had a door knock day and it was a Saturday, and it was like, for some reason, everybody was away on Saturday. And I started door knocking from 9 a.m. and went to 5, because I think I had something to do after 5, but it was 9 to 5. And I helped like 4 families. No exaggeration. Awesome. No planned appointments, no nothing. But if I wasn't to go do that, I wouldn't have helped those 4 families. I wouldn't have got paid. You know what I mean? The whole 9. So.
Absolutely. And that just goes to show, again, it's like what other people are not willing to do and what you're willing to do, right? It's going to dictate what it looks like for all of us, right? Yep. So that's awesome. And then obviously you're in home, you're making your clients feel comfortable and safe, so to say, with you, and through that conversation. If you don't mind, talk to us a little bit about being proactive in the home versus reactive at the end. So how are you avoiding like I need to think about it, I can't afford it, do I even need this? Like, how are you making sure you're not getting that at the end?
So a lot of times too, I kind of build up the why. I'm like, hey, I always show them the lead, right? And right at the beginning, I kind of try to paint a quick picture in like 5 minutes. And I'm just like, okay, so you filled this out. Now, I know you told me on the phone you wanted to put Becky, your daughter, as the beneficiary. That's correct, right? And she goes, yep. I'm like, nice. So does Becky live local to you? She live, a different state? Where's she located? Oh, well, she lives, 2 towns over, whatever, I'm like, oh, awesome. Nice. And so is this your first time looking into it? I kind of like feed into them, ask them questions. And then they're like, oh, no, this is my first time applying. I'm like, okay, perfect. So what made you think about filling this out? What was the reason when you read it and then you filled it out and then sent it into our office? And they're like, well, I saw it for funeral, or they were like, oh, well, I wanted to get this taken care of. I didn't want my daughter to get stuck with it. I said, okay, perfect. So, if something was to happen yesterday, right, what would your daughter do? Right. And kind of dig into a little bit of it and say, like, this is, why did you fill it out? What are you trying to prevent? What are you trying to help with your daughter? Make sure there's no burden, right? Because that's almost like my go-to. And they say, oh, I got to think about it. And I was like, well, you thought about it when you filled it out. You mailed it into us. You invited me over to come here, right? You already told me you don't want this burden left to Becky, right? So, we're just trying to get you qualified and go over this with you so we can get you approved because you want the coverage, right? And they're like, yeah. So once you get a lot of yeahs out of them, you get them back to saying yes. And then the reason of why they filled it out, because a lot of times too, people forget why they got it. They're like, they call it cancel, say, hey, I'm coming back over to come explain, what it looked like again with your daughter. And they're like, oh yeah, you're right. So I kind of try to always build a big why at the beginning and remind them why they filled it out. And then if worse comes to shove, I come right back to it. So if they're like, oh, well, I got to think about it. I don't know if I want to do it. Perfect. Well, the insurance company has to think about it too, because they don't even know if they want to qualify you. So let's see if we can get you qualified. Let's make sure you get approved. then we could talk it over with your daughter. We'll make a second appointment, you know, or call me if you have any questions, right? I'm here to help you. So I think that's a big thing too. I when they give me objections, I kind of like look at them like I'm super confused about this whole situation. Like, you filled this out to me, you filled it out, put it in your mailbox, sent it to me, answered the phone for me, told me to come over at this time. I come over, we go over it. There's no no's, and you tell me you got to think about it. Can I be real with you? I'm like, you know, you're 65 years old or 70 or 75. What are you waiting for? What else do you got to think about? You know, you need it, right? And you kind of like press them a little bit. And I think when you start going that route and you're like, you know, you need it, right? Because they do generally need it. It's usually at the point of like, you need it, we're going to get you approved, and then we're going to come back over and sit and go over it. I think control of the in-homes, you know?
I like that a lot, because it sounds like you're taking control right in the beginning when you're talking about their why, which it sounds like on the phone, you probably asked them like, and now Gary, when you filled this out, what was your biggest concern? Who were you looking to protect? So you have those couple of notes, right? You have that kind of little bit of ammo that you're going in with, right? And then you're kind of feeding off of that. And I think it's really, I like how you said, you know, like what were you trying to prevent? I think that that's huge, because it's like, that's what we're in there doing is prevention, right? Like, we're making sure that this situation doesn't happen, right? And, you know, how can we prevent it? And then I also love how you're saying, you're asking them, is this your first time looking into it? Because, you know, are you sitting with a shopper, right? Are you sitting with somebody that just got coverage yesterday and like just is not telling you that, right? Are you sitting with somebody who's sat with 20 people and you want to understand why they've sat with 20 people, right? Kind of the psychology behind why they fill the form out, right? Which is very important, you know? And I love how you just dig into that. And then you're reminding them why. Like, you're using what they told you in the beginning throughout your conversation to lead, guide, and direct them to make the right decision to put coverage in place for their family. And like you said, it's a big control thing, right? Like, if you go in the house and you're like, oh, like, everything's up to you, I'm not going to ask you any questions. It's like, Gary, would you say it's fair, like, if you went into somebody's home and you didn't ask like about why they filled it out or any questions outside of the financial inventory questions, that you're probably going to get some kickback?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Like 100%.
I think, 100%. Yeah, definitely. And that's how I was at the beginning. I went outside, asked those questions at the beginning, and that's where the result of you were getting the, oh, I got to think about it. And I was the person at the beginning where I was like, oh, okay, here's my number. They're going to definitely call me back. And they definitely don't. So they never call me back. So
never, right? Like, they never call you back,
no,
right?
No. But I think that's the thing too. And when you actually do get them approved and you get them, you know, you actually are able to get them the policy and you sit back with them and they're actually happy and grateful you did it. Because I've had, you know, you have plenty of people that are like, I'm really happy you actually like got me to do this. My good peace of mind. My daughter's happy. And, you know, a lot of people just need that push, you know, to actually do it. They're going to procrastinate their whole lives. They already procrastinated that long, you know, so.
That's right. And I think that that's huge because, you know, like you said, like when you first came in, you didn't really ask a whole lot of those questions, but it goes back to like, if you're sitting with 70-year-old, you know, John, it's like, John needs the coverage. Like, he's 70 years old. He's telling you he doesn't have anything in place. Like, if you leave that house or I leave that house, it's like, all I'm thinking about is what I did wrong or what I could have done better because John's 70 years old and has no insurance and thinks it's okay. Right? Like, and now when he dies, I already know his daughter, Kimberly, is going to be in a really bad position. So like that makes me feel like I need to fight for John while I'm there. Right. But once you leave the home, that's it. Like they're not like Gary, like they're not calling you back, guys. Like they are not calling you back. I promise. And I say that in the most loving way. The worst thing that could happen to a brand new agent is you go into a house and then they call you back. Because then you're going to think like, that's normal. Everybody calls back. Guys, people typically do not call you back. You might have like that one story, but like, guys, it's not even like a normal thing to happen. So fight for the family while you're in there. Like Gary's saying, like, you know, I tell people like, I'm sitting with John, who's 70 years old, like you're in the fourth quarter, John. Like, you've already
Mm-hmm.
waited 70 years. Like, all due respect, like, what are we waiting for, man?
Mm-hmm.
Can I just wait? And people are like, oh, well, like, you really say that? Yes. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yes, I really say that. Because if not, John's not going to get coverage. And 10 to 1 says he's not going to let another insurance agent in his house and he's going to die with no life insurance. So, like, which
Mm-hmm.
side of the fence do I want to be on? The quote unquote mean person that said, John, you're in the fourth quarter because he is, and he got his
Mm-hmm.
coverage, or the person that's like, okay, well, if you ever have any questions, call me, like, bye, right? Like, no,
Yeah.
I want to be the first person, the person that stood up for John's family. And that shows John too, when that day comes, like, you're going to be there for him, Gary, right? Like, you stood up.
Exactly.
And I'm sure that they see that too when you're reviewing the policies. And like you said, they're like, I'm really thankful that we did this. My daughter's happy. My, grandson, fill in the blank, right? Is really thankful for it. And guys, that speaks volumes, because when you stand up for the person in the home, it shows
Mm-hmm.
them what you're going to do for their beneficiary when they're not here anymore. Like, I don't want somebody, like, if I died right now, I don't want somebody who's not going to stand up for my
Mm-hmm.
sister to be, dealing with my insurance matters. Like, I want Gary to be dealing with my insurance matters, right? Like, I want someone who's going to stand up for me in the home and be like, hey, you're 29 years old. You don't know when your day is going to come. So let's get this in place while you're still young and healthy. And
Mm-hmm.
let's be on with it, right? Like, I'm
Yeah.
like, I love that guy. He came in and told me exactly what to do. And
Mm-hmm.
guys, it's like, like, Gary, when the Comcast guy comes to your house, like, he tells you exactly what he's going to do, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
you're not like,
Yep.
oh, come on over here and this is what we're going to do. No, don't do that. Like, you just let him do his thing, right?
Yeah.
Guys, we got to be order takers. And that's what
Mm-hmm.
it sounds like you're doing, Gary, is you're listening to the person's need and you're just truly filling it in. So
Yep.
I love that. I know I went kind of down a tangent there, but
No, that's good.
control in the house is so, so, so important. And you just
Mm-hmm.
really dug in on that. And then just to kind of wrap it up, what are some tips that you would give to an agent that's brand new, or an agent maybe that's been kind of struggling through the past month or so? Maybe it's mindset holding them back. Like, what are some pieces of advice that you might give to that particular group?
I think the biggest thing at the beginning with me, and I did this, I made this mistake, but I think a lot of times too, get around people, talk to people that are doing it, because they're going to be the lifters. Everybody that helps a bunch of families a month, right? Typically those people have gone through the same exact thing you have, right? And I think a lot of times too, this business is pretty simple of how to kind of fix the situation. It's either work ethic, you don't have enough leads. Maybe you're not dialing them, maybe you're not door knocking them. I think a lot of it too is just get around people, talk to people. It does get lonely, right? I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to say it's peaches and rainbows out there, but yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. I think talk to people, get around people, definitely stay focused. And if you see people, there's so many people in Family First Life. If you see somebody that you're relatable to, right, get in touch with them. There's people, reaching out to Wiley Hawkins or something, right? Which I reached out to him and he's kind of relatable to me, but it's, hey, it's that nerve-wracking feeling of messaging him because you feel like you're bothering him, but he actually feels grateful helping me, right? Having questions with that. So I think a lot of it too is definitely reach out to people. You're not bothering them. They all went through the same thing. We all go through the same stuff, right? I think definitely motivation and stuff is keep it going. It's going to work, right? You ever seen that little picture where the guy's mining the rock and then he quits and turns around and he was literally almost at the diamond? That's what this business is. So many people get to that point at the end where they're about to break, they're about to make it happen, and then they stop and then they turn around and give up. It's like, dude, you were right there. Like, if you could see it from the outside in, it's like, holy crap, you were right there. Just don't give up, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, that's pretty much all I have.
Yeah, you had one more. Go for it, Gary.
I forgot what I kind of was going. I was like, yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. Just doing that, staying focused. I wrote down why I did it, right? And taped it on my wall. And I said, why am I doing this? I'm doing this to support a family, right? Newborn coming, all that stuff. Like, this is this is what I'm doing it for, you know? And I think a lot of it too, this business takes a turn too, once you start figuring it out. And it's like, holy crap, if I care more, the result of getting paid just gets higher. The more I care, the more rewards you get, right? I think at the beginning, we all take that little turn in the beginning where we're like, I got to make money, I got to make my bills. And 100% we all do, right? But I think too, once you're just like, you know what? These are the people, I'm going to go out and help one family. If I went home and I helped one family, it was a good day. If I went out, I learned something, it's a good day. If I can better my craft every single day, that was a good day. So I think a lot of it, everybody, if I put my feet on the ground every morning, I was happy, you know? So that's all. I mean, just keep looking forward, talk to people, you know, stay focused on why you're doing it, what you're looking to do, you know, is either it's more freedom, you know, kind of just get out there and stay focused pretty much.
Absolutely. And guys, that like last like couple minutes where Gary just like went in, if you weren't taking notes, listen back to this call and when we post it and take notes on that. He talked about getting around people who are doing it, right? We all have the same challenges, literally all have the same challenges. Talk to people and just have a forward mindset. And then the idea and the concept of that mind with the diamond, you're probably right through a breakthrough moment. Just keep going and keep staying around the right people. And Gary, to wrap the call up, what are your goals to wrap up 2023? Personal, team, both?
So my goal, I've been trying to focus a lot more, obviously do Hall of Fame for the second year in a row. And then my goal by the end of this year is to try to be about 250 families as a team and probably try to get at least 20 people where they can probably impact their lives, make a difference, better their situation, right? And kind of do that. So I would say 250 families a month consistently by the end of the year, and probably try to change, you know, 20 people's lives in this business and impact their lives in a greater way, you know, so.
Absolutely. I love that. And there's no doubt that you're going to do that with the, you know, with your attitude, your mindset, and just your willingness to do and to teach, and just seeing it on this call too is absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. So no doubt you're going to crush Hall of Fame this year. So you'll be a 2-time Hall of Famer back to back, and your group will be helping well over 250 families. And like you said, it's that impact on the people's lives you're going to be making. So I'm really excited to see it at convention. And Gary, thank you so much.